Hey there, so you clicked the video by watching the thumbnail, correct? What did the thumbnail say? It said advanced uses of enough. Well, you're probably thinking that you know what the word enough means. I mean, we all know that enough means sufficient. But let me tell you that you do not know some really advanced ways to use this word. Now, why am I saying this? Is because if you stay with me until the end of this video, I can guarantee that you will end up learning this word in a very different way. Let me tell you that the reason I know advanced English is because I take a word and I learn to use it in so many different ways. But now it's your chance to do that. Okay, so if you are giving your IELTS test, if you are going to speak in the speaking module, or even giving your writing test, a Cambridge exam, or the IELTS writing module, you don't want to miss this. You are going to learn this word enough and open new possibilities to use this word in so many ways. Okay, so let's get to it. The first way to use enough, or the advanced way to use enough, is to say that something is funnily enough, strangely enough, or oddly enough. Well, let me tell you that these phrases are like the beginning of a statement. But why do you use them? There is a reason. It does not mean sufficient, okay? It does not mean that. What does it really mean? It means that you are talking about something which is surprising but true, which means that it is something you did not expect. So you see, the word enough by itself only means sufficient. We all know that. But when I pair it with the words funnily, strangely, and oddly to give you these amazing phrases like funnily enough, strangely enough, and oddly enough, what happens? The meaning changes altogether, right? So let's look at it in a sentence. Funnily enough, I was thinking of you when you called. So what it really means is that I was surprised that you called, but it's true that you called. In other words, I can use funnily enough to show my surprise when something happens because I did not expect it. Okay? Now, I can also use this other phrase, strangely enough, by saying, strangely enough, he got an A, even though he hardly studied for the test. Now, a lot of us, like at least I'm that way, I don't expect to get an A in anything, okay? I was never good at studies, but sometimes it's true, I'm surprised when I get an A, which happens like just 1 or 2 times, but I'm surprised, right? Or I can use, oddly enough, she wasn't offended by his insults, okay? Who is not normally offended by insults? Everybody is, but oddly enough, which means we didn't expect her to not be offended, okay? So we were surprised, but it's true that she was not offended by his insults. Okay, now when you are giving your IELTS writing test or your speaking module, you're talking in your speaking module, you want to use these phrases when you're trying to talk about experiences, what really happened. Okay, so why don't you do this? Hit the pause button and right now, why don't you make a statement right now using any one of these phrases? Come on, I want to see if you can really make a good statement. Think about giving the IELTS test or just a normal sentence for everyday use. Let me now go to another way or another use of enough, which is near enough. So why do we use near enough? Because it basically means almost. Now, almost is not 100%, okay? So, not good at math, okay? But let's say if I had 10 apples and if someone ate 9 apples, they ate almost all of the apples, but they did not eat like all the 10 apples. Does that make sense? Well, that's really what I'm trying to say, that near enough means almost everything, okay, but not the total thing. So, in a sentence, you could say they are near enough the same age, which means me and let's say Niharika, we're near enough the same age, okay? So, I may be 30 and she may be 29. So, we're near enough the same age, not the exact age, just a little bit, a little difference, okay? Or you could say it is near enough an exact copy of the iPhone. Okay, so some iPhones, they kind of look, we all know how an iPhone looks, but there are some phones which look almost. They have all the features, or at least 90% of the features, which means they are near enough. They're almost, but not completely, they don't completely look like the iPhone. All right. All right, then I have another advanced use of enough. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. It gets better, okay? So you can say nowhere enough, or you could say not nearly enough. Okay, was that a tongue twister? Let's try it again. You could say nowhere enough or not nearly enough. What does this mean? Is it enough? Let's have a look. It basically means when something is less than what you need. Or let's say you need 10 pieces of something to bake a cake, but you only have 3 pieces. Not enough, right? So that's when you say this is nowhere enough. So I can say they have nowhere enough money to plan such a lavish wedding, right? So they have nowhere enough compared to what they need. Or you could say, there are not nearly enough resources to run such a huge project. That's true. Sometimes you have a huge project, but you need enough resources. But if you have a lot less than what you need, there's a huge gap, then you say, well, there are not nearly enough resources to run such a huge project. Now, this kind of a phrase, these phrases, take some time to adjust to, take some time to master. So go ahead and put in your comments with your own sentences right now. Okay, let me see how you're doing. I will personally comment on those phrases. Okay, we've got another one which says sure enough. Okay, the word sure should kind of give you a hint about what this could possibly mean, right? Sure means you know exactly what it is. So sure enough means something that is on expected lines, which means you expect something to happen. You know it's going to happen, right? So you can say, I had a feeling that he'd show up at the last moment. And sure enough, he did, which means as expected. It's another way of saying, and as expected, he did. Or you could say, the manager told us that he'd find our lost phone in the lobby, and sure enough, and as expected, he did, which means we were sure. We knew it's going to happen. We expected it to happen. Okay? All right, then let's have a look at another way to use enough, which is true enough. Okay, I like this phrase because true basically means that something is accurate, right? So when do we use it? We use it when we want to say that something is fairly correct or fairly accurate. Okay, in a sentence I can say, it's true enough that she was unhappy with her job. Okay, it's correct. We know that this is a fact. Okay, so here we're talking about facts. Okay, so it is a fact that she was not happy with her job, but we did not expect her to leave without notice. Okay, so whenever you're talking about facts, you can say it's true enough that she was unhappy, or it's true enough that we wanted to go on vacation, but we couldn't because we had a lot of work to do. Okay, so that's how you use this phrase. How about using fair enough? Now, when do we use fair enough? We're using it to show that we have obviously understood why someone or somebody said something. But wait a minute. This is not a sentence. This is going to be a response. Okay, so normally we use the other phrases that you saw were a part of a sentence. This is just a phrase used by itself in response to what someone said. Why? Because you are responding to tell them that, hey, I understand. I understand why you're saying what you're saying. Let's see an example. I can't come to the party, I'm working late. So someone has told me, you know what, Seema, I'm sorry, I can't come to the party, I'm working late. So I am responding by saying, fair enough. Why? Because it shows that I obviously understand why you are saying what you're saying. I understand that you are saying that you cannot come to the party because you're working late. You can't do it. You're not going to be there. That's fine. Let's look at another example. I think we should take turns to pay our room rent. Okay, two people share a room, and one of them says, hey, why don't we share the room rent? We'll take our turns. You pay this month, I'll pay the next month. And the other one says, hey, fair enough, which means I obviously understand why you're saying this. Okay, so this is a really good phrase to show that you understand the other person's statement, you understand why you're saying what you're saying, and you're basically a person who likes to cooperate, right? So these are the many different uses of the word enough. Have I convinced you that if you use one word in so many different ways, your English will improve? Well, I hope you are convinced, and I know you are convinced, and that is why I want all of you to put in your comments below. Okay, I want you to tell me how you're going to use each of these phrases. Like I said, I want to personally check them, correct them, and give you my feedback. So keep practicing. Enough of the word enough.